this pre-submission presentation.
All right, thanks. So when I was about 21 years old, my mom asked me this question to me and my brother actually, what I thought was quite profound. So she asked if there was anything specific about her parenting that was particularly good, or actually particularly bad that we remember. And she asked us specifically because she thought that parenting was quite difficult. Of course, wanted to know what was good in parenting or didn't work so well in parenting. And thankfully, there's a lot of research to help parents kind of figure out what is good or doesn't work so well in parenting. And here, specifically in my PhD, I focused on autonomy, supportive parenting, and psychological control in parenting. And this is not just about the small things in parenting, but also more about the general approaches to parenting. So I should say the parenting styles.
What did you say to your mom?
We'll talk about it later. Shouldn't be recorded. And a lot is known already about autonomy, supportive parenting, and psychological control in parenting, and how it relates to development, general well-being, or also even education. So it's surprising that there's still some questions that have not been answered about specifically autonomy, support, and psychological control, but also more parenting in general. And it's these questions that are that actually bring up questions about research that already exists and also just theories in this area. And those are the things I will be targeting in my PhD, or targeted already in my PhD, we'll talk about today. So for this all to make sense, I'll first talk about autonomy, support, and psychological control, and to kind of explain it. So autonomy, supportive parenting is the approach for parents to support their children to be self-initiating and autonomous rather than just complying to their parents' needs. And those would include allowing the child meaningful choices, or really the willingness to take the perception of the child, but also teaching the child to act out of genuine interests. And there's also psychological control. This should not be confused with the many other types of control, such as behavioral control, which is putting on structures for the child, which is actually shown to be very helpful for the child. But also not with, say, control and overprotection, or this type of control. But it's really an intrusive type of control, where the parents manipulate the child's thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And so it would include guilt induction for the child, or also making the child feel guilty. Sorry, guilt induction I already talked about. It also includes stuff like restricting or constraining verbal expressions of the child, or love withdrawal in general. And so this brings me to the first issue in parenting that really relates to these two parenting styles, and that's about the relationship between these styles. So some research really approaches these as two separate constructs, but some other research also shows them as, or looks at them as two ends of a single continuum. And it's really important to know what really is the case, because there's research that actually uses both styles, or one style reverse coded to measure the other style. And so if this is not on a single continuum, that could lead to very wrong conclusions in research. And so it's also important for interventions, because we have to know whether targeting one parenting style actually change also the other, or whether both have to be targeted. And so I will focus on this in the first study. In the second study, I'll specifically look at the distinctions between measurement approaches in parenting. So when you measure parenting, you can make a distinction between parenting types. So that means you can look at the child perception, the parent perception, or observer perceptions. Or you can look at report targets. So you can target maternal, paternal parenting specifically, or you can target them together. And so for my mother's question, although it was not scientific, she made a mistake, if it was scientific questions, to not ask about my dad's parenting. And so it's quite important, and although research kind of leans towards parenting, mothers and fathers kind of approaching parenting the same, but it is not being researched with the questions I want to have answered. And what she did correctly was, of course, looking at different report types. So she had her own parent perception of mind, and she wanted to know my brother's and my perception, so the youth perception side of that. And that's quite important, because there's very likely to be quite some biases in these different perceptions. And so it's important to have all these, to have a perspective on all these different approaches to measuring parenting, to really come to a good conclusion of the effects that parenting has on any outcomes. And it's so surprising that there's research that works from the assumption that no matter the measurement approaches, they measure the same parenting styles that are intended. But this has not been tested before, and it's important to do. And also, there has been no exact research on having all these parenting measurement approaches and see whether they really relate similarly to any outcomes. And that's what I'll be doing in this study too. And it's also important to make a distinction or consider the development of a child. So there's a lot of parenting research that uses cross-sectional data, but then generalizes the outcomes across parenting. And it's important to kind of not generalize this, because parenting has been shown to change throughout development of a child. And so, like I said before, in study 1, I'll specifically look at the relationship between autonomy support and psychological control. And I've done that with a meta-analysis, because there's many studies that actually do report this relationship, but there's not much agreement on it. And so I've emphasized that there would be a moderate to large relationship, so they would be related negatively, but they would still be considered as distinct constructs. And I also expect there to be a lot of variability, because there's so many different reports on it and many different opinions on it. And I expected these distinctions to be moderated by different measurement approaches, but also by different developmental stages. So for study 1, this is the meta-analysis, and I included 48 studies with 78 original data points. And this indeed got to an overall pooled effect size of minus 0.41, so it's a moderate to large negative effect size. And this really shows that, yes, autonomy support and psychological control, they are related, but they are definitely distinct and should be treated as such in research. And with the I-squared, it can be seen that there's a lot of heterogeneity going on. It can also be seen in this funnel plot, where there's so many data points standing outside of the confidence interval lines. And so moderation analysis was indeed needed. Unlike what I expected, though, this was not moderated by differences in measurement approaches, but it was mainly moderated, or only moderated, by developmental stages. As you can see here, the relationship was particularly high negative in early childhood, which was then much smaller again for school-age children, so 6 to 12 years old, and that then increased towards while growing to emerging adulthood. And so, by this graph itself doesn't say that much, because you want to know the reason for this sudden difference. And so I did combine the moderation of developmental stages with report types and report targets to kind of get a better idea about it. And I'll now show you the graph of the combination of developmental stages with report types to kind of better understand this graph. So here you just have the observer report. And as you can see straight away already is that this high negative relationship is mainly because of it's based on observer reports, and there's no child report or parent report in this. And you can also see that observer report shows a large negative relationship as school-age children. And this early adolescence suddenly becomes much smaller, but this should be taken with a grain of salt because it only consists of one study with 2 data points. And so it would be interesting to get some parenting data or future research to look at the parenting data to see what really is going on or whether this relationship really is that or not. And so for the child's perspective, the blue line kind of shows that expected relationship that we saw, or difference in relationship that we saw in the developmental figure itself. And you can see that it is a very small relationship and it becomes much larger towards emerging adulthood. The question, of course, is whether it's really happening, whether this relationship really is becoming larger towards emerging adulthood, or whether it's just perceived by the parent by the children. So maybe throughout adolescence, children become better at distinguishing between autonomy, support, or psychological control. And so, of course, the parent report to kind of double check this, and that showed that there was a similar trend in here. So also, small relationship that's becoming larger towards late adolescence. But although we can't fully conclude that it's exactly the same because there's much less data on parent reports and no emerging adulthood, and this only consists of, again, one study with 2 data points. So more parent report data is again required to make a full conclusion about this. So study 1, although it shows that the relationship between autonomy support and psychological control is not moderated by differences in measurement approaches, But that only says something about the relative difference between autonomy, support, and psychological control, not so much about how the parenting is approached with each measurement approach itself. And that's what I'll be looking at in study 2. But before going to explaining study 2, I'll talk about how in study 2 and study 3 I only use Finnish data, and I used 2 large longitudinal Finnish databases, Mind the Gap and the Finedu study, which is managed by Katarina Salnalaro, who's my associate supervisor. She would have been here in a conference call with us now, but it's 3 a.m. in Finland at the moment, so that was not really feasible. And I also got a great opportunity to go to Finland, as you can see here, and to work together closely with the people in those databases, both at the University of Helsinki and in Jyväskylä. And as you can see, I had some great company also while I was in Finland. I worked very hard while we were there. But okay, so for study 2 and study 3, it's very important to take that Finnish context into consideration, because Finnish society and culture is really based around egalitarian values, where there are really high quality social services, where equal distribution of wealth is central to those services. And so support from the government for the young Finnish youth and for the parent or for the family makes it so that parents can provide optimal parenting without feeling too much pressure from financial stresses or time pressures, or having that affect the way in which parents plan to socialize their children too much. And also, these stresses are less likely, the stress on the family are less likely to go all the way down to the child level. So, this Finnish data was particularly good to test the things I wanted to test, or questions I had, because Finnish data specifically at one time point had all the measurement approaches that I required to kind of do a test on that. So it had both the child's perceptions of both the mothers and fathers parenting, and it had the mothers and fathers parenting perceptions of their own parenting. And so using CFA and measurement invariance, it was possible to test that untested assumption of whether different parent approaches really still all equally test the same parenting style that's intended. And I already said now, it did indeed show measurement invariance. So no matter which measurement approach was used, it equally or it all measured the same type of parenting. And the test is both for autonomy, support, and psychological control. And these invariance tests made it possible to also check latent correlations and latent mean differences. I can't show that now, sadly, because of time pressures, but if anyone has questions about it, I'll be happy to show a bit about it after. But I was able to test also structural invariance, so to test whether differences in measurement approaches actually equally related to any outcomes. And I hypothesized that this would be the case, that structural invariance would generally be seen between these measurement approaches, but that if there were any difference, I hypothesized that it would be mainly because of differences between child perceptions and parent perceptions. And so this is a structural invariance model, in which is outcomes that use well-being and ill-being variables. And these are specifically depression, life satisfaction, self-esteem, and emotional exhaustion, inadequacy, and cynicism, these last 3 being burnout variables. And to test structural invariance, you can test a model like this, with including all these measurements approaches, and constrain the regression parameters to be equal, and compare that to a model where these constraints are not there. And if there's no difference, no significant difference, and the fit's still really good, then structural invariance can be assumed. And so this was the case for the majority of the outcomes. So it meant that for the majority of outcomes, it didn't matter which measurement approach was taken, they similarly related to any outcomes. And this was the case for autonomy supports relationship with self-esteem, emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and inadequacy. And for psychological control, relationship with depression, self-esteem, life satisfaction, and emotional exhaustion. But there was not structural invariance for all the variables. So there was 2 instances where a model fit better, where there was where only the parents, the difference in parenting report types were constrained. So the parent reports were constrained and the child reports were constrained. And that showed that in that case, for depression relationship with autonomy support, there was a negative relationship, but only for the child's perspective. And the same was the case for psychological control, where there was only a positive relationship between the child's perception of autonomy, of psychological control with inadequacy. There was also a case in where best fit was a model without constraints, and that was with autonomy, support, and life satisfaction, where this is only a positive relationship was perceived for child report about others, and then for the relationship of psychological and cynicism, where there were no relationships. So as conclusion for study 2, the same kind of parenting styles measured with both youth and parent perceptions across both mothers and fathers. This I didn't explicitly talk about, is concluded from this study, is that differences in degrees and correlations with and between the parenting styles mainly come from distinctions between youth and parenting perceptions. And no matter the measurement approach, each parenting style is mostly similarly related to well and ill-being, and distinctions between youth and parent perceptions moderated a few differences. So maybe my mom was right in only asking about her own parenting and not so much about my parents, and of course taking that different perspective between her parent perception and the child perception of my brother and me. So now, taking those conclusions from study 1 and study 2, it's possible to do a more applied study about parenting while taking those issues in parenting into consideration. And so that's what I did for study 3, and specifically in the context of educational transition. So understanding how children manage to navigate educational transitions while still maintaining mental health and well-being is really important and parents are very likely to be able to help children flourish by providing that autonomy supportive environment in preparation for the educational transition. And so in this study I tested how parenting before a transition affected well-being after the transition. And here I specifically look at child report only and also only autonomy supportive parenting. And I look at multiple educational transitions to take that developmental stages difference into consideration. And so I hypothesized that that autonomy supportive parenting promotes positive changes in well-being after transition, and it also buffers against negative or decreases in mental health after educational transition surrounding high school. And so it's also important to take into consideration here that there would be possibly bidirectional relationships. So co-regulation theory kind of says that that the parent-child relationship is a two-way street. It's not only parents who influence children, but also children who influence parents. So that will also be tested in this study. And so, of course, I also look at the difference between mothers and fathers, whether they equally affect, whether their parenting equally affects any outcomes. And I'll say that now because I don't want to spend too much time with it. Mothers and fathers are equally important around transitions and influencing well-being of the children. So I'm looking at whether autonomy supportive parenting facilitates self-esteem and life satisfaction, and whether it buffers against depressive symptoms and emotional exhaustion. And it is in separate models for each transition. So there's models for a middle school transition, a high school transition, and a post-high school transition. And in each case, accounted for student gender and interdependence because it's family data. And this is the cross-sectional structural equation model that I used. It's actually also a multi-group model between mothers and fathers as groups, but I didn't picture it here out of simplicity. I'll only be presenting the recurring findings that I found in this study because that's the best measure of generalization. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to test the exact same model for every transition because it was secondary data, so not everything was available at every stage. So for the middle school transition, for example, I was not able to test that co-regulation effect because there was no data on parenting after the transition. And for the post-high school transition, no distinction was made between mothers and fathers. But for the middle school transition, I found that autonomy supportive parenting for both the mother and the father before the transition decreased depressive symptoms after the transition. And the same thing was found for high school transition, but on top of that there was also a co-regulation effect. So depressive symptoms before the high school transition decreased perceptions of autonomy supportive parenting after the transition, which is interesting. In the high school transition, I also found that autonomy supportive parenting before the transition increased self-esteem after the transition. And this was also again found for the post-high school transition. In the post-high school transition, I also found there's depression effects again. So autonomy support before, decreasing depression after, and depression before, decreasing autonomy support or perceptions of that after the transition. So in conclusion for study 3, maternal and paternal autonomy support were of equal importance. There was evidence of co-regulation for depressive symptoms, so it meant that there was not only a relationship between autonomy support affecting well-being, but also that well-being affected autonomy support from the parents. The question is, of course, is whether this is truly happening or whether this is only perceived by the children. And that is another example of why having that child perception and the parent perception distinction, to have that, to be able to kind of figure out what's really going on here. Unfortunately, it was not available for the study. And perceived parental autonomy support related to a decrease in depressive symptoms and an increase in self-esteem across high school transitions. So, as an overall summary, to go over all the main findings from all the studies again, is that in study 1 I found that autonomy support and psychological control are related but distinct, and their relationship is moderated by developmental stages. So that means that for studies of parenting, it's really important to take autonomy support and psychological control as separate constructs, and for parenting interventions to really target both parenting styles separately, and not assume that one will change when targeting one. In study 2, I found that for both autonomy support and psychological control, there's differences between child and parent perceptions that moderate the relationship of parenting with well-being and ill-being. And so it's important for studies to keep on taking this distinction between child report and parent report into consideration. Especially because child report also seems to be a better predictor of any outcomes. And so in parenting interventions, also clinical interventions in parenting, it's important to not only target the parents, but also to take more a family approach, to take the mothers, the parents and the children, because to see whether there's whether the issue lies with the parents, with the children, or maybe both the parents and the children. In study 3, I found that autonomy supportive parenting served as both a protective and promotive factor for well-being across high school transitions. And so it's important for parents to consider the role they play in preparing their children for educational transitions, and they may be able to provide a platform for their children to thrive on around educational transitions. And so to take all these conclusions together, regardless of these conclusions, parenting of course remains very complicated. But I hope that these studies at least are able to provide some initial solutions or answers to some issues in the research, or at the very least provide a serious start to look at these issues in the research, to be able to, for parenting research, to provide accurate conclusions about or informing accurately parenting practices and parenting interventions. So thanks for listening, and are there any questions?
Yeah.
In the path analyses that you showed, I mean, you were just giving us summary, so you didn't show us all the detail. Were those effects of autonomy above and beyond? Was the psychological control and autonomy included in the same model, and those paths were in addition to those? Because there'd be multicollinearity problems because they're reasonably substantially correlated. I didn't understand how you took care of that.
Okay, so are you talking about study 2 or study 3?
Study 2 in particular, but study 3.
Well, study 3 I did not test for autonomy support, so it didn't be an issue. And in study 1, study 2, I tested them separately in separate models. I did test for the measurement invariance. I put them together in a model, but not for these models.
Okay.
Any other questions? That make it too easy for me. Okay, you can make it easy for me.
Jasper?
Oh, did you?
I'm just interested in study 3. Are the effects similar for boys and girls?
I only counted for the gender differences of boys and girls. I did not actually look at them specifically. There would make too many differences here, so I unfortunately can't answer that.
Because my first thought when I look at the title is that you say coercive parenting. Can that be viewed as supportive by some kids?
Coercive parenting. So there's a lot of arguments about this, and actually it is a working title, so I should change it back to psychological control and parenting, to be honest. But it depends on the developmental stage in research, what is seen as helpful and what's seen as not helpful. So usually for younger children, coercive parenting may be seen as more helpful. But I'm specifically looking at psychological control in parenting, where that is really seen as an intrusive type of parenting. oftentimes not seen as helpful. Yeah, continue.
So one really important question, and the other not so important. The important one, if I understand you correctly,
Yeah.
I don't actually have to be in autonomy supportive parents. I have to make my daughter believe that she.
I would not say.
You are Lord.
We of course have to look into like the parents themselves too in that case, but I would not say that that's the case, but it does, because I feel like it still influences each
So
other.
what does the data say about actual autonomy support measures of, I don't know how people measure that, actual autonomy support of real parents and kids' perceptions of autonomy support?
So-
Are there any studies that actually?
The problem is you want to define it objectively as a behavior independent of the function it's having on the kid. So for one kid, that same exact behavior is used really coercive. So I actually think the perceptions are.
Oh, no, I completely agree. I just wondered if there was any data of that.
So- That's what research, of course, isn't clear enough about yet, but it does seem like they are better predictors of outcomes in this case. But Herb disagrees about it.
No, I mean, when we posed this question to Rich in a couple of things, he was saying that the autonomy support doesn't mean that you don't put down rules and so forth, but they're presented in a way so that the person they're directed to understands them and so forth. And so that's a little bit like what we're talking about now. So the same behavior in the way it was presented could be coercive and negative, or it could be positive and constructive. And so this notion of how the child perceives it is more subtle than you're talking about. I mean, you're talking about it, you're suggesting that there's a response bias sort of stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, there's of course not enough research about on purpose trying to kind of deceive the child to think that they're being autonomy supportive. That would be interesting, of course, but I think it also would be very difficult to make the child believe that you're autonomy supportive.
Because in the sense of saying, do you feel heard when they give you these rules? Do you feel heard by your parent? And are you?
Are these the items? What are the items?
It's like that.
It's
For
like
autonomy support?
perceived as
they-
from the child.
They discuss the rules with the kid.
Yeah, discussing the rules with
So
kids.
discussing the rules with the kid.
Yeah.
Well, what a kid perceives is having you discuss.
So it's also important for autonomy support, for example, it's also important to give meaningful choices, but you can also give meaningful choices that appear to be meaningful, but may not actually be.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I just say,
Jasper.
you can go with that board and he can live.
What's the correlation between parents' autonomy, the parents' perception of their autonomy support and the child's perception of the parent? What was that correlation?
The correlation? Okay. I got that here. I brought that with me, thankfully.
I remember. There you go. Look at that.
So that would be here. What were you asking?
So the parent's perception versus the child's perception on autonomy
Yes.
support.
So
Yeah.
that would be
Mother autonomy.
so there would be for autonomy support it would be that's father. So
Father, child is one of
Father.
Father.
so it would be points for
Is 0.21?
for mother
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
0.45.
Mother is 0.29. It looks like.
or 0.29, and for father it would be 0.21, which is not something population. So it's quite small.
So you can try and convince your
Yeah,
child, but
you
you've
can
got
try,
quite
yeah.
less chance.
Maybe it's the parent. Maybe it's the parent that's full of shit.
But guys, we're doing.
Yeah.
We're doing positive psychology here, so let's not go into manipulation. So question.
Actually, Phil has the same question.
Okay.
But so now that we see the correlations, so wait, so what are the correlations? We have
All the correlations.
correlations between the different perceptions of autonomy support.
Yeah.
So we have, and is the objective, are the objective measures there as well? Because I think in some of your studies you had the objective reports.
The observer report?
Yeah.
Yeah, not here, because that was in the meta-analysis. I did not have that in this situation. So only the child's perception versus the parent's perception, yeah.
I think there's danger in calling that an objective.
Yeah.
Oh, the observer perception. Do we know what the correlation between the observer is with the child and the parent?
No, I have
The convergences?
No.
Okay.
If you go back to that,
That would be.
and meta-analysis slide, they're quite different though, aren't they?
I think it's weird.
But that's about the relation between autonomy support and control, so you can't say too much about that, unfortunately.
So some the observers, where they bring them in the lab and have them interact, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of strange that the correlations are so low, right? Because
Yeah.
if you look at the interpersonal research, interpersonal theory, interpersonal circumflex, and even just personality trait research, self-other correlations are much higher. And if you look at some of the behaviors that comprise autonomy support, they overlap with the behaviors that are encompassed by the interpersonal circle and agreeableness, for example. So looking into that divergence is really important and interesting.
Maybe are the personality traits based on behaviors like they like to talk to lots of kids, whereas this is more of a
Yeah, so the interpersonal work is very situated, it's very
situated. Okay.
so there would be more overlap you would expect between those perceptions.
This is for her. I was wondering if we need a domain-specific version of parenting. Because I'm very, like, the way I respond to my daughter talking about boys is not necessarily autonomous important. It's true, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, right.
But not for me, my husband, yeah.
Following on that correlation, why is the control, interpersonal control correlation higher than autonomy support?
Then the correlation between autonomy support?
Between child and parent. So control.
There's more agreement amongst.
More agreement.
Is more tangible.
Yeah.
Control is more tangible than
I think it would be, because it's quite difficult.
Easier to self-control.
It may be difficult to kind of fully recognize autonomy supportive parenting versus really intrusive parenting, so controlling behavior. Because not everyone also knows very well what autonomy support would be or what it entails, and then when you get these questions, it may be difficult to really remember or recall these. Yeah, Felicia.
I'm more familiar with British data, which is based on Gordon Parker's parenting measure. And there are three quite distinct dimensions. One is to do with autonomy control, which maybe you're included in the same one and that could be criticised. But there are two others. One is to do with warmth, and the other is to do with engagement and interest.
Okay.
And I wonder if you have any measures of those two, because the outcomes in the British birth cohort study show that, that actually they're different for symptoms of mental health disorders, like depression symptoms, versus positive well-being. So for symptoms, the autonomy support, control thing is very important, of course, we've known that for ages, as is the warmth. But the engagement and interest doesn't make any difference. But for positive wellbeing outcomes, that's really important.
Wow.
And I just wonder if you have any data on those sort of dimensions.
I'm actually not specifically familiar with his different parenting constructs that he uses. And I also have not used engagement reviews. I specifically looked at autonomy supportive parenting and psychological control in this case. So, unfortunately, but it sounds very interesting.
I thought autonomy support does overlap with warmth or coercion. I'm surprised that there's
definitely a big relationship there,
yeah, definitely. But engagement is interesting. That's a really interesting
Yeah.
question, because coercive engagement, like the dance mom, basically. Yeah, that's really. So if you're coercive, but you're not even engaged with your kid, maybe it hasn't got much of a negative effect.
There's definitely more parenting styles than simply autonomy, support, and psychological control to take into consideration, but I decided to really focus on these in my PhD. Any other questions?
Okay.
All right.